What happens when you leave a loyal husband for a man who promises you heaven, only to end up in a motel room with nothing? The papers arrived in a plain envelope, but inside was the kind of revenge that cuts deeper than shouting or anger. How did I go from being celebrated for trading up to watching my whole life collapse in silence? My name is Esme Laurent. I'm 34 years old, and if you'd asked anyone a year ago, they would have told you I was the lucky one. I had Daniel, my husband, who was steady, kind, and the type of man everyone said women dreamed of marrying. He worked as a teacher, came home every night on time, and never once gave me a reason to doubt him. And yet, I did. I told myself over and over that stability wasn't enough, that I deserved more than a small house and dinners made from whatever was on sale that week. I started looking at him not as a partner, but as an anchor, holding me down while the rest of the world rushed past. When Victor Harlan came into the picture, a man with money, connections, and charm, I thought the universe was finally offering me an escape. I convinced myself it wasn't wrong to want better, that any woman in my place would have done the same. My parents even said I should be proud for catching someone like him. My sister cheered me on, and my friends joked that I was leveling up. Daniel was painted as boring, small, too simple to match the life I claimed I was meant for. I leaned into that story, told anyone who would listen that he was fragile, that I was wasting my best years beside a man with no ambition. At first, I felt powerful. Victor swept me into restaurants I'd only ever seen online, bought me clothes I never would have dared to pick up myself, and made me feel like I'd stepped into the life I'd always imagined. Every time I sat at a table with my family and compared Daniel's job to Victor's empire, people laughed with me. Every time I called Daniel weak for being quiet in public while Victor dominated the room, I told myself I was proving a point. The more Daniel stayed silent, the more I mistook it for proof he had no fight in him. I didn't see then that silence can be its own kind of weapon. I thought I had everything under control. What I didn't realize was that Daniel was watching, listening, and preparing. While I paraded myself as the woman who had traded up, he was quietly building something stronger than my jokes or my bragging, something I never saw coming. Looking back, that was the beginning of the end, though I refused to see it. I told myself I was winning, when really, I was setting myself up to lose everything. It began in our living room, the place Daniel once filled with calm. I sat with my sister Clara, laughing about how Victor made me feel alive compared to my quiet husband. I knew Daniel could hear, but I didn't care. Clara nodded, saying I was smart to aim higher, and I smiled, certain I deserved applause. My parents later repeated the same, telling me I was brave for leaving behind a simple life. Daniel stayed silent, only looking at me once with a face I couldn't read. That night, he walked out the door without saying a single word. Victor took me to dinners where the wine cost more than Daniel's weekly salary, and I loved flaunting it. At one family gathering, I leaned across the table and said, "Daniel used to grade papers while Victor sealed business deals." Everyone laughed, and I felt untouchable. Daniel excused himself quietly, which only fueled my story that he was weak. I told my parents he should thank me for staying as long as I did. My sister posted pictures of me in designer clothes, writing captions about upgrades. That same night, unknown to me, Daniel was already sitting with a lawyer. At work, whispers spread about my new lifestyle, and I pretended not to notice. Victor grew colder, answering my calls less, yet I clung to the idea he was still my future. I told the children their father was too busy for them, spinning lies to keep my image clean. When Margaret, Daniel's mother, challenged me, I said he abandoned us, making her the enemy. My sister still praised me, though even she began to look uneasy. Then one weekend, Daniel dropped off Noah and Elise. He handed me a sealed envelope, met my eyes once, and left without speaking. I opened the envelope expecting some tired plea or note of bitterness, but inside were divorce filings, custody motions, and financial records I didn't even know Daniel had gathered. My hands shook as I flipped through page after page, each one a reminder that he hadn't been weak at all. He'd been patient, careful, and preparing. I rushed to Victor's condo that evening, waving the papers in front of him, demanding reassurance. He only sighed, saying he wouldn't be dragged into domestic drama, and that this was between me and Daniel. The chill in his voice terrified me more than the documents. When I begged him not to step back now, he said he had business dinners, not babysitting sessions. At home, I called Daniel selfish, accused him of ruining the children's stability, but he only stood there silent, expression unreadable. My parents, once so proud of my upgrade, were suddenly cautious, blaming me for not thinking things through. Clara stopped answering my calls. Margaret openly called me reckless, defending her son in front of anyone who asked. I had thought I was in control, but that packet of papers told the truth. Daniel was dismantling my life piece by piece. The courtroom felt colder than I expected, not because of the air, but because of the way Daniel sat across from me, calm, steady, refusing to even glance my way. His lawyer spoke with quiet confidence, laying out evidence of my spending sprees, the trips I charged to our joint account, even screenshots of messages with Victor that I had thought were private. I wanted to scream that it was unfair, that he was twisting things, but the judge only looked at me with tired eyes, as if I were just another case of someone who thought they were smarter than the system. My own lawyer whispered that things didn't look good, and I snapped at him for not fighting harder. In mediation, Daniel's requests were measured: primary custody during the school week, financial protection for the children, limits on my access to the house I once called mine. I tried to paint him as vindictive, saying he was trying to erase me from their lives, but his quiet tone carried more weight than all my protests. My parents, who had once paraded Victor around like a trophy, barely spoke to me now, shifting uncomfortably on the benches as testimony unfolded. Margaret, smug in her certainty, told anyone who would listen that her son was only protecting his children. The final blow came when Noah and Elise themselves were mentioned. Reports showed they were thriving at Daniel's home, calmer, more settled. My heart sank because I knew it was true. I had told myself I was chasing passion, but in court I looked like a woman who gambled her family away. When the ruling came granting Daniel primary custody and safeguarding the finances, I felt the room close in. He hadn't shouted, hadn't begged, he had simply taken everything back in silence. Now I sit in a motel room that smells of bleach and stale smoke, staring at the court order lying on the bed. Victor has vanished from my life, not even answering my messages. My parents only call to ask about the children, never about me. Clara has gone silent, and Margaret will not even acknowledge I exist. I tell myself I chose passion, that Daniel was small-minded, but no one listens anymore. Noah and Elise are with him, safe in the home I once complained was too modest. The silence is unbearable because it is final. I thought I could humiliate him and walk away with more, but he never raised his voice, never fought in the way I expected. He let me play my game until he ended it with one envelope. Now I am left with nothing but the sound of my own excuses. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.